And now we are about ready for Butch. Now give me just a second. I have met Butch on several occasions, but I don't know him super well. And so I asked him to provide me a bio so that I could properly introduce him so that you guys would know his credentials. And I said in the chat, and I put this in the Plan C group chat, that if there was such a thing as a credentialed preparedness expert, it's hard to argue that Butch isn't one of them. It started with F, but yes. Let me read you a little bit of this. All right, there's a lot of government and FBI and FEMA stuff in here, but I think he's actually one of us. Okay. All right, Butch Erskine is a decorated U.S. Air Force veteran, very good, of 20 years and public speaker in emergency preparedness and disaster recovery. With over 40 years of experience in, I didn't know, he didn't look that old, over 40 years of experience in all facets of global security, vulnerability assessments, and emergency planning, Butch continues his efforts to focus on the spiritual and psychological foundation of the family and individual preparedness. I don't know if he's going to get into this, but Butch is he's a Christian guy, dedicated Christian guy, and from my previous conversations, he sort of feels called of God to spread the word of preparedness. I call him a preparedness evangelist because a lot of his work is going around to churches all over the place, and he spends a great deal of time doing that. Butch is a native West Virginian who now resides in East Tennessee. He entered the United States Air Force in 1983 and completed an associate's degree in industrial security from the community college. Man, that sounds boring. From the Community College of the Air Force in 1990, a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology. I'll forgive you for that, I guess. From Park University in 2003. But, you know, psychology is important, and it is being used against you right now. There's John Cole. Let's give John a hand clap. Yay, John. All right, psychology from Park University in 2003 and a Master's of Arts degree in emergency and disaster, Master of Arts degree in emergency and disaster management. He has a master's degree in emergency and disaster management with honors from the American Military University in 2012. Butch is a defense contractor working in emergency management. That's his job, developing emergency plans, processes, and procedures. Throughout life, he has promoted Christian values and constitutional freedoms. The last 8 years of his military career were spent serving special duty as a security advisor to the U.S. Air Force Special Operations Command in support of U.S. Special Operations Command, USOCOM, United Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, U.S. Special Operations Command in Europe, U.S. Special Operations Command Pacific. Traveling over 300 days per year, Butch developed security and anti-terrorism plans in over 50 countries and supported the U.S. counterterrorism program to the United States Department of Defense by conducting risk analysis and vulnerability assessments for numerous U.S. embassies in Eastern and Western Europe and Africa. I don't know how much more of this. Let's see. Now, over the past years, Butch has made his mission to reach out to citizens to help them develop their preparedness and spiritual foundation. Amen. Preach. He believes the decline of morals and personal freedoms, kind of like I talked about, as well as the increasing attacks on Christians and citizens with conservative values. He believes that's a bad thing, I believe. Butch has completed over 50 FEMA courses And he graduated 50 FEMA courses, so he knows how they operate. And he graduated from the National Incident Management System FEMA course and obtained a national certification in graduate incident response to terrorist bombings, FEMA ATF in-resident course, and FBI active shooter course. And he's instructed all kind of things about heritage life skills. He's written 2 books, and he has some stuff up here. I guess that is probably for sale. There's 2 books. I have them both. The Mindset I particularly liked. It was very cool, and I really hope that he'll come out with a 3rd one that talks a lot about area studies and open source intelligence and that sort of thing. He's been on several podcasts and guest speakers for InfraGard, which is an FBI organization. Anyway, so this guy ought to know his stuff. So we're going to get him hooked up on this microphone, and let's give Butch a hand clap. Let's see. Here, this is a mute switch. Let me get your presentation up. All right. 5. Make sure we're still recording well. Blah, blah. Looks like we're recording well. Oh, that's not it. Nope. All right, I think that's it.
Testing. Can you hear me all right? Thanks,
And
Mike.
You got your little mic on too, right?
You're very kind. Anyone can write a resume, right? And put what you want in it, and they sound great. My wife's here, and she can attest that had I not got a D+ in recess, I probably wouldn't have graduated from high school, okay? Recess and study hall were probably my favorite classes, all 4 times I had to take them to pass. But yeah, so thank you all for being here. Thanks for the invite to NARPNet. I appreciate it. It's always good to come home to Huntsville. This all kind of started out as a journey in Huntsville several years back, which led to Hope for Survival, the launch of it about 3.5 years ago. So if not me, then who? Everyone say that. If not me, then who? How many of you realize that we have a lot of problems surrounding us in our country? Right? And we probably spend more time arguing with friends and throwing our shoes at TV screens as to why no one's doing something about it, right? And so several years ago, I'm not going to go into great detail about it because that's not what I'm here to talk about. But there was kind of a spiritual movement to move in the direction of Hope for Survival. But one of the big factors was, I still today do, but at that time, I worked in emergency management. And part of going through the process of getting my master's in emergency management, disaster recovery, and taking all these FEMA classes, there was one thing that really stood out to me. And I write about it in the beginning of my book, first book. We don't matter. We do not matter. It's not personal, right? It's not personal. And it makes sense why we don't matter, because critical infrastructure is a priority all the way down to your local town, through county, state, and at the federal level. You have to have utilities, power, septic, water, bridges, roads, communications. You got to have all these things, right? But in the meantime, while they're trying to recover and reset all of these resources, where does that leave you? Right? If you don't have food and water and some other skills, you could be days, you could be weeks or longer where you have no self-reliance and you cannot be self-dependent. So that was what kind of launched me on this journey, was that we don't matter. So guess what? If not me, then who? Right? Train self, train others, use others to go into the world and plant seeds to grow communities. Right? That's kind of been our mission the last 3 years. So, in the last 3 years, 3.5, I've probably done preparedness training somewhere between 8 to 10 states in the Southeast and the East Coast side. Probably in the range of 5 to 7,500 people, right? All walks of life. All walks of life, right? And in the last few months, I kind of sat down. I don't have a lot of free time because I still work full time in a day job. But I've kind of been writing notes down, and that's how I came up with the title that I offered to Mike, was Preparedness Theory versus Reality. In 2012, when I taught the first preparedness class here in Huntsville to a group, from that point of, this is my theory, this is what I think. I had 20 years of military, 8 of that was living in crap holes all over the world. Seeing how other people live, seeing what happens when society collapses, right? How do people who have nothing function, right? So anyway, I started putting notes down, and what I want to share with you is what we thought in the beginning, right? What we realized along the way, and the reality of where we are with preparers, okay? It's not personal, it's professional. Take notes. You might be able to apply it to yourself. You might be able to apply it to your group. You may say, you know what? I or we are experiencing the same things. So real quick about Hope for Survival for a second here. Actually, I'll do it at the end. All right? All right, so here we go. Preparedness, theory versus reality. The first time when you start to figure out, you know what, something's wrong, I really need to do this preparedness thing, a lot of people get wigged out, right? And over here is the reality. This is where we're at today with a lot in the preparedness world, right? You'll understand that picture at the end. So the theory in the beginning, when we started out, we wanted to find like-minded people and work together to prepare. You know, we kind of, like Mike was talking about earlier, go to meetings and so forth, and you know, we might have a code that we flash, or we have certain buzzwords that we use. And it's like, she or he they're one of us, right? Stock masses of preparedness, resources such as ammunition, food, water, purification, medicinal, ham radio equipment, ammunition seems to be the key resource needed to fight the imagined army coming over the nearest hillside. How many of you, how many of you are new to this? Okay, all right. How many of you are 10 years or longer? Okay, so we have a good assortment here. How many of you, before I go further, how many of you, I'll ask this together so you're not giving it away. How many of you plan to either, you either have a plan or you're working on it to bug out? Someone's recording us. No, just kidding. So a few of you held up your hand that you're planning on bugging out. Those that held up their hand that they're bugging out, how many of you have thought about that you're going to bug out but have not made a commitment yet and have a plan in place to bug out? We're family, it's not personal. Okay? Keep that thought in mind. Obtain as many skills as possible and align with others who are skilled. Identify a bug out location if required, but also as a fallback plan. If possible, work with others to form a plan to bug out together to a central location to build a community when the time arrives. So at 1 a.m. tonight, we're all going to get a text message advising us it's time to bug out. Is that how it works? At 12:30 a.m., we're going to get a text from all of our banks telling us, guess what, all your money's gone. And at 1 a.m., we get a message saying it's time to bug out. And at 2 a.m., we'll get another text message telling us everything just went to crap. We're going to get a heads up notice, right? Isn't that how it works? Okay. Just making sure. Bugging out as a lone wolf is inviting and survivability seems likely because no one is prepared as each of us are individually. Remember, this was in the beginning. Stay up to date with the main threat, which appears to be a rogue government. Everyone was terrified of the big G, right? The big G. Get involved with patriot groups personally and politically. Know your potential enemies near you, which is likely to be those supporting the opposing political party against patriots and Second Amendment rights. Remember that? I remember here in Huntsville, they were having all kind of rallies back in like 2010 time frame-ish, and folks that I knew were dressing up in all kind of costumes and going out to patriot rallies, and their pictures were in the newspaper. You know, it was the we and the them, right? Keep your thoughts and plans silent as possible. OPSEC, you know, loose lips sink ships, right? We didn't know what we didn't know yet. We didn't know what we didn't know yet. These were theories built off of assumptions that we really thought we knew. So some of the starting framework for HFS theory, hope for survival theory, I like to call it preparing and not prepping, right? I want to prepare for every day starting today. I may lose my job. I may get sick and lose my income. I may be in a car wreck. Many, many, many things can happen before the big one hits that will change your life. It is creating a self-reliant insurance policy for your life and for your family and your home versus I'm looking way at the wall because in a year, 2 years, 3 years, when I get that text message, doomsday is going to hit. How many people go through floods, tornadoes, sicknesses, illnesses, and all different kinds of personal or natural man-made events between now and when that big green army comes over the hill after us, right? So that's why we call it preparing and not prepping, right? It's adapting and adjusting versus a singular focus, right? Adapting and adjusting to where you may be at in your preparedness journey. A lot of us are approaching the age of dirt, and our ability to do things. You know, I was telling someone on our Zoom call the other night, if I had to run and jump in a foxhole, I'd probably need a ladder to get out of it. So I could be in there for a while, right? So events in our nation started changing and becoming more apparent. At the government level, politics, laws, executive orders against veterans, patriots, and Christians. Tools used against the general population, escalating debt, welfare programs, border intrusions, and media used against the original intent of our foundation and ability to survive as originally designed. Complete political division developing amongst citizens. Is there a difference between a liberal and a conservative party? I firmly believe not, right? I am a conservative Christian patriot with allegiance to my country. So a lot of folks are like, well, if the Republicans or well, if the Democrats. We are at a time in our history right now where you're either an American or you're not. What is best for our country, okay? What is best for our great nation? Political figures aligning with identified enemies to our nation. Greed. Greed kills anything and everything that it can invade. Prolonged wars with no evidence of a desire to win and come home. What was the original intent versus the intent at the end of a war? A weaponized Department of Justice softening on domestic criminals committing violent crimes against humanity. State governors aligning with national political parties versus what is best for the people in their states. Domestic groups committing crimes against citizens of opposing political parties, looting and burning private property with impunity. Think Seattle and Minneapolis versus January the 6th. It's not how it was originally designed. So bugging in, bugging out, that thing again. Questions that you should that you need to answer, right? I'm bugging in because, I'm bugging out because. How much thought have you actually really applied to it, right? Do I bug in or do I bug out? Is my existing location safe? Where would I go? What do I take? How do I find a shelter? Do I need a team? What can I offer another team? What are my limitations? Where am I the safest? Am I spiritually, physically, and psychologically prepared? How can I figure these things out? Factors to consider when deciding what you're going to do. Type of disaster you're preparing for. Geographical location, environmental concerns. Medical needs or supplies of your family members. Most likely threats or dangers you will face. Will you be traveling through known dangerous areas? Any factors unique to your family or situation, pro or con to your efforts. Don't forget to carry cash if it's still a player. Have a plan A, B, C, and D. Remember, if the plan fails, you better have a backup. Almost all initial plans are going to fail. Something is going to go wrong in almost anything that you do. Discuss the what-ifs to your plans. Physical fitness is key. Remember, knowledge is power. Mike mentioned it when he was reading the bio, and he was talking about intelligence, counterintelligence, gathering information since it's illegal to collect information. There's so much, while we have access to the internet, there's so much information available to you that you can really do great things to help build your preparedness package in your community. Okay. Conduct a risk analysis. This is probably the most important step in what you do, and it is the least attended class when I offer it. It is a boring topic that no one wants to talk about. Risk, right? I have a gun and I have 120 rounds and 4 MREs, and bring them on, right? What is the risk to you? What's the risk to your family? You know, since I started this, I've aged a bit and had a few surgeries, right? My wife tells me all she has to do is outrun me and she'll be okay. Well, she wins in that factor, right? My thought then is totally different than it is today, right? I used to think, if you come on my porch, one of us is going to hit the ground. That used to be my mindset, right? I had spent 20 years in the military and 8 years around the world. It was just the Kool-Aid still in my blood, right? Now I have a family. So I go out on the porch and make a fool of myself, and I end up in jail if there's still rule of law. Or if I'm dead, all those plans that have been built, right? You're now leaving your loved one stuck with all that, and who knows what's going to happen to them. So it's kind of that think smarter, not harder type deal. So conducting a risk analysis, outline why you should stay or go. A risk analysis should be conducted on most aspects of your life, especially in the world we live today. How? Identify current leadership to lead, conduct, and monitor processes. Identify priorities in order of need, not want. Identify every known realistic threat. That's where the internet in your local area, right? I think it's in book 2, The Mindset. I give you a whole bunch of websites in there that you can use to legally collect information on who gives how much to what political figure. You can sign up for free programs that will send you alerts when certain people go in restaurants or wherever it is you want to know. It's all legal, okay? Every Sunday morning by around 8 a.m., I get an alert on my cell phone that tells me if anyone within the radius I've selected in my community, any warrants or arrest has happened, right? We live in a small community, but it's an app that you can use for free. Identify your vulnerabilities to the threats. I have a vulnerability. My wife can outrun me. That means anything chasing her will get me, right? So that is a vulnerability. How can I mitigate that vulnerability? Wear skates, use a skateboard, something to mitigate, to make that threat go away. Establish a mitigation plan. In book 1, I have all kind of charts and samples and stuff like that. If you can't mitigate the threat, consider changing your current circumstance. Engage the plan until the new risk assessment decreases the risk to your priority. Folks, everyone in here basically raised their hand and said something bad. Something has changed and something bad is going to happen, right? The question is, what are you doing about it? Again, at 11:55, are you going to get a text message telling you it's here? The big one has hit? The banks are closed? No. You got to do your own research and do your own planning. So along the way, some realizations started becoming apparent, right? Preparers are unable to break free of original theories and preparing and adjusting to different threats locally. They're too focused on Washington, D.C., Trump, QAnon, COVID-19, and media-driven propaganda, creating a psychological psychosis that kidnaps the minds and creates a false sense of hope versus stepping up to the plate locally.
Amen. Hear, hear.
Anyone that's in Hope for Survival can tell you, I beat my forehead until it's red. Either writing about it, speaking about it for probably a year and a half now. How the media in Washington, D.C. has kidnapped the minds of millions of our people. Right? It doesn't matter, let it go. Right? Mike even mentioned it earlier. I'll elaborate more in a minute. You got to stay on track. Or Mike and I both will be up here standing on the table, you know. Captured by the cause and not focused on the effect of the cause to individuals and how the cause will impact their life locally. Washington is the cause. What is the effect to you? Wherever you may be off-grid, surrounded by squirrels. What is Washington doing that will impact you? They are the cause, they're the disease. They're creating the life is not as it used to be, right? How is it impacting you? If you're watching 10 hours of podcast videos and TV a day on what's happening outside of your community, folks, you're wasting your time. It's running up your blood pressure, it's running up your stress level, and you need to let it go, okay? Go find the Disney movie and play the Let It Go, Let It Go. I think we actually have a video of our granddaughter singing it when she's like 3 or 4. Let it go. You can't fix it or change it. And voting in an election, it is so far damaged and abscessed, it's going to take years and years and years to change the culture there, right? Focus on you and your community. Still contemplating bugging in or bugging out versus building a community team in their area. Attending lots of meetings and not focusing on skills training such as gardening, water purification, medical skills, communication, and raising animals. Skills. If you don't have them, you need to find someone who has those skills, and you need to agree to disagree, give each other a hug, whatever you need to do, but you need to learn to work together.
Amen. That's right.
Okay? It doesn't matter if they're a Democrat, if they're nothing. If they live near you, they're still going to live near you, right? When you are hungry and you need food and you have mouths to feed, it is not going to matter if they voted for Barack Obama or Donald Trump. You better learn to work together to go forward, okay? Because it's not going. You can chase each other with shovels after you plant your garden. Who cares? At least the food's planted. Right? You can call it your evening entertainment. Not building plans such as their emergency food, water, communication, security, and OPSEC plans, and instead still maintaining a vision within their head how it's going to go down. Plans, plans, plans. If you don't have it in writing and bullets start flying, or you got little kids screaming because you haven't been able to feed them for 4 days, you aren't going to remember probably where you even have put your seeds. When that stress level goes up and how the whole brain starts to work, you're going to have trouble remembering things. You need to put a plan in place for all these processes, right? What if it's your unlucky day and you go outside and you have an accident and you die? Right? I know folks that have amazing preparedness plans, underground bunkers, rooms, years worth of food, enough ammo to stock us all for probably forever. a solar system that's off the radar. Am I right, hon?
Yes.
Probably at least $2 million in security. And guess where they were vulnerable? None of it was in writing, and they didn't have a plan. And they were both over 70 years old. He was the man of the house until he goes down, and he did have a vulnerability which was identified to him. His wife had no clue how to get into safes, how to get the solar systems that was powering their separated water and underground lighting and underground air filtration. Nothing's in writing. You need plans. You gotta have plans, okay? Will fail due to inability to gather and build intelligence plans within a community in a 5-mile radius. When I say 5-mile radius, it's in theory, all right? I'm not saying go drive 5 miles and put a stake in the ground. Look at the layout of your community, right? How it's laid out, how it's designed. If Mike lives a mile from me, and Mike and I have started a community, in theory, my 5-mile radius is 1 mile because it's where Mike's at. But when Mike goes on down the road and he finds another like-minded to start bonding and working as a community, now my radius just went from 1 mile to how far Mike is taking it, okay? Willingness to lead as needed lacks, and in many cases fails this much needed requirement. Very important to families and communities. HFS folks who are in here, we just in the past week, we had an in-depth conversation about the importance of leadership. If you can't take something that you enjoy doing, crocheting, planting bugs, whatever it is, and talk to people about it because you get nervous, then you need to go ahead and do it. You need to learn to speak to people, because if you are preparedness minded and you're trying to convince people around you to do it, how well can you convince them if you're afraid to talk to them, like say in a setting? Your whole family comes together for a family reunion, and for 6 months you have planned to talk to them about getting prepared, and the time comes and you cannot even remember what you were going to talk about because you're nervous about speaking in front of people, right? You've got to start taking steps to be leaders. If not me, then who? If not you, then who? Right? If you're afraid and you shake like a wind chime, stand in front of your mirror. Find a friend or a sibling that you trust. Practice it, practice it, practice it. You know? I used to tell a joke that every once in a while I had to tell my wife, look, lay down the law, this is how it's going to be. You know, and the 1, 2, 3 thing. And then she would come around the corner and see me practicing it in front of the mirror. And it was like, it's all over, forget it, you know? So, focused on skills they enjoy and know versus taking time to learn how much needed additional skills lacking in basic understanding, design, and implementation. Love them like family. The Dear Sister Patriots and Hope for Survival, love them like siblings. And God bless them for their hard work that they're trying to learn how to can, and they're doing all these great things, but it's things they enjoy. Hey sister, have you worked on your water filtration? I bought a Berkey. Well, good, how's it working? I don't know yet, it's out in the garage. How about that satellite phone you bought? I don't know, I don't have it out of the box yet. If you have figured out how to can, awesome, keep canning. But when you turn off the TV and stop worrying about Washington, you're gonna have all these extra hours. Do tasks and skills that you must have, right? And do it with friends and teams. You know what? I can't convince you to prepare because I want to be a prepper, but I can start a community garden without any discussion of preparing. I can start a community garden and invite my neighbors over. I don't care who they voted for at that point, but I do know they know how and when to put seeds in the ground and how to grow them, okay? So why do you need a community team? Why do you need a community team? Folks, when I started off on this journey years ago, my wife can tell you, I had this vision of living up on this high mountain, and the only people we had to talk to were squirrels, groundhogs, and raccoons, right? Through years of research, study, time, and all of that, my mindset changed. You have to have a team and a community. You have to. This is just a concept, what I'm going to show you, okay? You may live rural, you may live urban. You can apply the concept. Think of it of the mindset, right? Like Mike said, so much of what we're doing is a mindset, right? You are being hoodwinked through so many psychological tools, weapons, and programs by the system that many are prostituted to for needs, right? That we're trying to wean off of to a large degree. You live right there in the house where the pool's at, right here, right? 87,000 new IRS agents are getting ready to hit the streets. We can debate on why or for what, but you live in that house right there. What do you see around you that's going to stop them from coming to your front door? What's that?
A bunch of other houses.
Bunch of other houses, right? Who around you is going to call you and say, hey, there's 12 Suburbans coming your way. I don't know where they're headed, but they got 4 sheriff's cars with them. And then you hear a knock on your door. And after you go change your underpants, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, right? Bob, what did you do? You've gotten us in trouble on the internet on some of them crazy tinfoil sites, right? Wouldn't it be better if you had a community team that you've worked it out with, right? Down along there is an exterior perimeter. You can deploy and train your security as needed, wanted, as desired during escalation or however. See those cars up there at the top? They can't get into your community because during a WROL without rule of law, they cannot get in because you have it blocked. Now, you may have heard in past in here or somewhere else why it is so critical to meet your sheriff and know your local sheriff. Your sheriff can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. Fortunately for our neighborhood, he's a good friend of the family, and the family being our neighborhood. He's one of us, right? Anyone shows up there, if there's communication, the first call is going out to the sheriff's office, to our sheriff, Sheriff Calfee. Hey, Sheriff, we have some uninvited individuals who are coming to our neighborhood. We have them stopped. Can you please respond to deal with it? Your sheriff is the most powerful person in your county. You need them as a friend, or else you need to know where do they stand, okay? You need to include them in your planning process. So here you have a community concept. This is your inner, this is your outer. Communications, security desk, first aid, right? In our Thursday night Zoom, one of the things we do is called What Would You Do? And I give them a scenario, and this past week it was using this concept. You just went into without rule of law, and the city or town just turned off all your utilities. You no longer have power, septic, or water. How you gonna handle it? Where are you gonna get water? How would you go about finding water? And what would you do to handle your septic problem, okay? So, all right, the realities, real quick. The realities, these are realizations now as to the starting point, the journey, and so forth. We must be willing to adapt and adjust our mental preparedness to reality. Anyone that has served abroad, whether in the military or missions or anything of that nature, to see how life can be in these third world nations. In training and meeting lots of folks state to state who either are or want to be of the preparedness mindset, to some I honestly believe it is like a fairy tale, right? They see it and they think it, but they've never had to live it. Therefore, understanding this could be a reality has not hit yet, okay? Are individuals mentally committed to preparing and preparing for the right reasons versus a hobby, something to do, family pressure, or because it's fun? Are you willing to commit to what it takes to survive? When my water gets turned off, I have a backup plan. I have a creek. It's about 400 yards out the back of my house. Well, how are you gonna get it to your house? I'm gonna go carry 2 5-gallon buckets at 8 pounds a gallon. Well, what if there's a threat? What if someone's shooting at you while you're carrying 2 5-gallon buckets of water? What is your water plan? Back to the plan thing again, all right? The reality is unlike the initial theory years ago. Original external threats are causes to prepare. However, internal, family, community, and local threats are a higher likelihood to preparers. Washington is the cause. Where you're at is the effect, right? Washington creates a mess. People become jobless in your community. They become jobless, they can't pay rent, now they are homeless, now they can't buy food, and now they're looking for somewhere to seek shelter and somewhere to get food for their family. That is a local issue, not Washington. How are you planning for it at your local level, right? You work in a community that has, let's say, 3,000 people population. And you have one grocery store. You have a company that processes chickens, right? You have 800 people that drive every day to that business. What if you have an EMP or a CME that happens and all 800 of those people are now trapped in your community and you have one gas station and you have one grocery store? You now have 700 to 800 additional people that are going to be needing resources off your system, okay? As Mike was saying earlier, you are 9 meals away from starvation. 9 meals away from starvation, 3 days. When the 18-wheelers stop rolling, grocery stores, gas stations, and pharmaceuticals are stocked for 3 days, okay? You do not want to be part of the 95% of the populace of America who have 3 days or less of resources. When they're running to the grocery store to fight over ice cream and bonbons and Twinkies, you want to be at home separating yourself from those threats, right? Think about it. You live in a nation where 3 years ago, people ran out into the grocery stores when there was this deadly invisible virus to go buy toilet paper or whatever they needed, right? They were fighting over resources that we should already have stocked when there was an invisible threat surrounding them. And there was like, you know, they would open toilet paper and wrap their heads in it for a mask. You know, they lose their minds. You don't want to be a part of it, okay? There is no army coming across the hill. The biggest threat is the quicksand rapidly closing in around us through laws, political division, economic and debt strangulation, distrust of authorities in the national and the state leadership positions. While we're waiting on that text message to say, here comes the Green Army, through a digital world, they are surrounding us and surrounding us and surrounding us to the point that there's not going to be a Green Army, right? The biggest threat will be around our neighborhoods and local community through crime and starvation created by effects of numerous causes created elsewhere. Failure to commit to a community or team already will extremely hamper individual and team abilities to initially survive due to lacking skills, communication, leadership failures, available resources, and cohesive bonding. So those who are waiting till they get the text message to make that commitment as to bugging out, you're not going to have time to have cohesive bonding with the people that you're all along thinking that you're going to bug out with, right? You need to be doing that bonding now, okay? 2 weeks ago, I think it was, we had a couple of Hope for Survival folks, actually 3 of them, that were in our passing through our community. So we invited them and some of our team from our neighborhood, and I think altogether we had 10 or 12 folks at our house. Anyway, one of the guys from Atlanta, he said, I know every time you do something, you have an agenda and a point as to why you're doing it, and that's true. I said I wanted to take and put you all in a room together for a couple hours, and I wanted to see how well you would or wouldn't. Because there were multiple different styles of personalities. There were strong personalities, you know, A's, and I wanted to see how they would work out together. Because there is a likelihood down the road these individuals could all be together when the stress knob is turned way up. I wanted to see it now, okay? Being a gray man today is not a likely concept versus the need for local community support. Most individuals fail to recognize the criticality of written plans and practicing developed plans. Stress will ensue and overcome most, and chaos will prevail. The digital world today makes the likelihood of effective OPSEC extremely difficult and unlikely. The time has arrived to crap or get off the pot. And there's why I had the photo of the gentleman on the toilet in the beginning. Love you all, but the time has arrived for individuals, and we just kind of had this chat in Hope for Survival the other night. It's time that you either figure out that you're committed or you're not, right? The time for playing camp and the time for playing preparedness toys, you know, it's over. If you do not have it up here yet, you need to re-engage yourself in a mirror and figure out why you haven't, okay? So real quick, so along the journey when we was kind of discovering all these different things about preparedness, and it was kind of a spiritual thing, and also the realization that FEMA, through all the FEMA and all the other stuff, you don't matter. I don't matter. But you know what? This is our country, and we need to matter, right? We as individuals, families, and communities, we, the people, need to come together and build preparedness communities to survive, okay? So the Hope for Survival umbrella is based on risk assessment, management, threat mitigation, and planning, all right? And then you see the little umbrella strings. Water, food security, shelter, comms, medical, and other. Learning and training for proficiency. I train one goes to community, becomes a leader, works to plant seeds and grow other like-minded people in their communities, okay? So I just mentioned about individual commitment. So individual commitment, the book, The Mindset, talks about your individual commitment, getting outside the box thinking left of bang, seeing what is out there before it sees you, all right? Individual training, Hope for Survival, Book 1, and the Preparedness 101 class that we do. It's a 3-hour class. Family training, Preparedness 101 is you, Preparedness 102 is family. Community vetting, Hope for Survival meetings and vetting prospects. We have a whole process we use that we give to people out in the communities. Community organizing, the 5-mile radius, okay? It's not just finding people who want to prepare. It is finding individuals who have the mindset and are willing, if they have resources and skills, that's a plus, right? But having a process that you can vet worthy people and bring them in and get them, if you can, trained up. Then on the 5-mile radius, Mike's a mile down from me, right? He has cows. I have a veterinarian, right, over here. I can set up memorandums of understanding and memorandums of agreement that if Mike will share some beef with me, I'll send my veterinarian down to help him with his cows an hour or two, a month or a week or whatever we agree on, right? We have our own community of trusted, like-minded skills that when, as Mike was talking about all the resources that we're dependent upon, when we lean off of them, that we can help each other, right? If you have followed what's going on nationally in regards to all the beef, pork, chicken, how they're basically slaughtering them because they can't afford to keep them anymore. There's a program based out of Texas, I believe it is right now. I think the guy's name was Slim Tex that I heard speaking about it. But it's working in communities to where I can go direct to Mike because I know that Mike has beef and processes it, right? The FDA is trying to cut all that stuff off to prevent it, but to keep Mike in business with his cattle, it's like-minded individuals who are going and trying to keep these folks in business, or they're going to shut down, and now we're going to no longer have beef, and we're going to eat bugs and like it, right? So this is kind of our process. We have 2 books. Right now we have 4 different signal groups. We have a main signal group that that's based on just kind of preparedness, chatter, gardening, whatever they want to talk about. We have a spiritual room. Folks that need prayer, want prayer, they go to that room. We have a ham radio working group also. And we just started in the last week some, I call it caring minds, but they're doctors, nurses, and so forth. Like-mindedness together. We have a leaders group signal room, and we have a satellite phone working group room to work on these different projects and things that we're trying to do. We have our Zoom group meets every other Thursday. We have a website, YouTube, and so forth. I mentioned the books. I have books. All the proceeds from my books goes to charity. We don't keep a cent off of any of the books, right? All the proceeds from the books goes to up in East Tennessee, a food bank that helps buy food as needed for folks up there. So I think in 3 years, we've been able to give somewhere between $7,000 to $10,000 from book sales. So, yes, ma'am.
You mentioned your Zoom meeting every other Thursday. How do we find out or get an invitation to that?
We have a code. Actually, if you will write down an email address, I will send you a Welcome to Hope Survival email, and it has all the links for YouTube, website, all the stuff that's on there. And the nice thing is, for the most part, everything we do is free. You know, if I go out and do vulnerability assessments and so forth, I do charge for those because the money's recycled back to pay for fuel to go out to other places. So, to be part of a Zoom group, yes, you need to be Proton Mail. You can do the website and all that stuff as you want, but if you want in the Zoom group, you have to have Proton Mail. Ma'am.
When you talk about neighborhood bonding,
Yeah.
I'm starting to imagine myself beginning that process.
Yeah.
And so here's what occurs to me, but you've looked at the whole picture and you've had this conversation with many who are not familiar with this concept, and so you know how to navigate it. But I'm thinking that in that first chart, starting framework, is that like actually pillars of cultural Marxism, or you know what? The things that we say are really happening. What is it called? I mean, how do you start that conversation?
Hey, you know what? We're having a cookout Friday night. We're going to grill some burgers and hot dogs. Why don't you come over? The rest of the neighborhood's invited. Come on over, right? And Mike's coming over too. Hey, I just bought my wife a new pistol, and we're new to the area. Right? I need to find a firing range that I can take her to. Who's going to avoid the topic, or I don't own any guns? You know what? That's information. But you can use cookouts, you can use other community gardening to help you try to bond with these people, right? Because when it goes tank, they're still your neighborhood. Are they willing to get dirty and grow a garden? Are they willing to say, hey, you know what, I'll come over and help? You know what, when I knock on your door and I say, you know, hold on, I got to put my tinfoil hat on. The world's going to crap, and I've never met you. My name's Charlie Brown. And I really believe you should go get 6 months worth of food and water to take care of yourself. Or, you know what? There's all kind of bad things happening. Do you know that FEMA recommends that we have X amount of food and water stocked at home? We're just letting all the know. Here's your checklist too. And the sheriff provided this checklist, and it's where you can write down all of your high-value items and store it in a secure place, right? They're either receptive to it or they're not. If they're not, fine, let it be. But write it on your sheet. Know who they are, right? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
Jesse and I have had this conversation several times. I live in the small city, and the community, the actual physical people and structures of the community, I'm gonna call it a 3-block rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think that, and I know them, a single one of them has done anything to be prepared for anything other than going by Mickey D's or Domino's on the way home.
Yeah. Microwave syndrome.
How do I, should I stay and not run off? How do I prepare? Because these people are gonna be my immediate threat, because they're not gonna have anything.
Is there any possibility that you can leave the area when the time comes, or plan to? I would consider it. Just a suggestion. The first 72 hours are critical, right? Because you are of like-mindedness, you are going to recognize things are tanking and go to where you're safe, right? Versus waiting 48 hours till the EBT cards won't work. And they get really, really mad. They may not have figured out yet, but they're going to get really mad when their providers, that card, will not allow them to buy resources. You do not want to try to escape when they start burning and looting in the cities. Yes, ma'am. That's just my thought.
The answer's probably no, but is there a way to find out how many EBT cards have been issued for a zip? If you've got an idea of how many people that you're dealing with, should something like that come up, there's no possibility this number of people are going to be running to this store or this store or this store.
I would say that who has a PII or who has a EBT card is probably protected under PII. However, Hangout, just in the last 6 months, the number of people, look at the increased volume in the parking lots at your dollar store, Dollar General. And now, I'm not knocking them because I'm like the fried spam king, right? That's like hillbilly steak. We grew up on it. But you can look at the number of cars that are shopping. You know, spam's like $3 a can now. It used to be like $1.60. Even the dollar store is filling. People who are on fixed incomes, whether it's an EBT card, Social Security, whatever it is, wait till this winter. Wait till they're having to make choices between medicinal, rent, and paying for utilities. So that's the big thing, is just observation. So.
Well, thanks to Martina, I've got slides, but I know everybody here's tired of me asking questions because of this, but I live in an apartment, not out of choice.
Yep.
It's just, I moved closer to my mom before she passed away.
Yeah.
And then the housing market went crazy. And I'm doing my best to move to Middle or East Tennessee.
Come on over.
Hey, I'm trying, trust me.
We got vans lined up at exits of folks moving to East Tennessee.
Don't tell me that.
Oh yeah. Am I kidding? Our team, and we have 2,000 people, 1,500 people in our town, 3,500. It's like a one-stop light town. It's a flag flying red, white, and blue. We love America.
That's where I'm gonna be.
But on our preparedness folks, we got, I think, 3 families from California. We got 1 from New Jersey. We got 1 from Wisconsin. We got 1 from Virginia.
Wow.
We got one from Michigan. And they're rolling, actually we got 4 from California because of the other family. And these are folks that we're trying to hand out pamphlets at the exit to say, don't go spend all your money prepping. Let's talk before you do it. Because
That's the exact time.
they go hog wild and they're buying all this crap that if you can't use it, why are you buying it? Right? If you live in an apartment, why are you buying all this stuff that when you run, you can't carry it all?
What part of Northeast Tennessee?
We're in East Tennessee. We're an we're like an hour north of Asheville, 30 miles west, 30 miles east of Knoxville. Yeah.
And how do we identify our own sheriff? Are they zoned for?
Who did you elect as your sheriff?
Well, we know who the chief is. It's Kevin Turner. But, I mean, he's overall the whole county.
Madison?
Sheriff. He's the sheriff.
Madison County.
Yeah, he's the sheriff.
Yeah, that's your guy.
You?
No.
I'm retired, thank you.
I just know that he would know.
He what?
I just know that he would know.
Oh,
Kevin Turner.
I would tell you,
well, we want to meet them. We want to, well.
make an appointment and see if he will set up an appointment to meet with you. He works for you.
I've talked to people as I'm involved in poll worker.
Yeah.
They can't wait to retire. When they show up at the polls and I engage in conversation with them, they know stuff's about to happen. And they want out. So, I don't know what's happening with that.
Go home and get on the internet and Google sustainable developed cities and see if Huntsville's one of them. I would bet you it is. Last time I looked, there was 300 and some major cities in America that drank the Kool-Aid into sustainable development, which is Agenda 2030. Yeah.
Is that good or bad?
That's bad.
I didn't think 2030 was good.
You're gonna eat bugs, you're gonna sell your farm, you're gonna move into a city, we're gonna have public transportation, you're gonna live in a 400 square foot box. You're gonna like it.
And BlackRock is buying property. I haven't been able to find out yet who is buying obscene amounts of property in the Huntsville area, but the Home Builders Association is very aware of it. And
Oh, they're supporting it, I can tell you that.
Yeah, just remember this about BlackRock. Much that BlackRock's buying, it's being financed. And if the market starts tanking, they're gonna be drinking some serious quicksand because they got massive debt. Give it back to Mike. Thank you all. Again, if you want books, they're over here. Thank you.